Excellent. Okay, thank you. So we'll make a start. I am hoping you can all see my PowerPoint presentation. There's just a few slides, and we'll also jump in and look at the studio and things as well. Hi, Ron. Thank you for that. So let's have a look at what we're going to cover. We'll do some little introductions, and then we'll talk a little bit about what UiPath context grounding is. It should have gone private preview during August, so there's still a couple of weeks to go. I've just checked just before we came online. It still hasn't gone public preview yet, so hopefully that's going to be in the next couple of weeks, if not maybe the beginning of September. So very, very soon. I had hoped it would be available for you all by today, but unfortunately it's just not quite there yet. We'll then look at what I call trained agents, and we'll also maybe have a little chat about what an agent is and what an agentic approach is, because there's some differences there, and everybody has their own sort of versions of what that means. And then I'll show you a very quick POC that I did for multi-agent processing. Again, very simple, but you can see how we can expand it. Now, I'd be interested to hear your ideas of how you might want to see multi-agent processing. I also have an example of using context grounding for creating the next best action. So, you may have a telesales person on the line, and they want to know, what should I now do for my customer that I'm talking to? What should be the next best action in this scenario, for example? I will try and touch on semantic matching if we have time. I don't think we will, though, and then we'll go into some questions. So I'll try and keep it sort of within the 45-50 minutes, and also we'll do some questions. Please do put your questions in chat. Unfortunately, while I'm demonstrating, I can't actually see the chat window very clearly, so I will try and pause and check it as we go along, but definitely near the end we'll go through all your questions. Okay, so nothing's coming through there. So hopefully, is this recorded? Thank you, Ron. It is being recorded, and it should be made available to you all. There's nothing top secret that I'm sharing, so it shouldn't be a problem. So I will make that available. It will be available through the community website. It'll probably be 2 or 3 days after this event, so please don't expect it as soon as I've finished. Please maybe check on Thursday, Friday for it to be available. Hopefully you're all aware of UiPath and the UiPath platform. If you're not, very, very high level snapshot, 3 main areas: the discovery modules, some automation modules, and what we call operate modules. And this has been around since 2015 in different guises. And what we've done over the last sort of probably 18 months or so is really integrate closely with generative AI, sorry. We've already had AI embedded in the solution for a long time, and it's just recently we've added the generative components to our modules. I won't go into all the details of those. We can always do that another time. Couple of things I do want to point out, though. We do have a design module called Studio. We've got a few different versions of that, and we'll be showing you Studio today, and also a very quick way of building browser applications in a module called Apps, or Apps Designer, and I'll be showing you those today as well. And this is a really quick way of being able to test out some of the UiPath features. Okay, so why use LLM or generative AI in automation? There are 3 key areas. First of all, semantic data processing. So that's things like classifying stuff, searching for things, validating information, cleansing information. So these are pretty powerful and important things when we look at business processing. And then we also have the ability to do natural language processing. So that means just being able to communicate, asking questions to a document, for example, in natural speech language. Sentiment detection, is this a happy or a sad? Is it a negative or a positive thing that I'm looking at? And also translation. And again, for the APJ region, being able to translate across languages quickly and accurately is very important in such a diverse set of cultures. And then we also have this one called reasoning, analysis and suggestion. Now, reasoning, we have to be a little bit careful. We are finding that generative models are not super good at very complex reasoning. So we have to be quite careful on how we approach and create prompts for reasoning. But at a light level, and possibly enough for business processing to make reasoning through your logic flows, it should be powerful enough. And so there's sort of the three categories that you might want to use Gen AI. And context grounding, also known as RAG, is one way that we can help move this forward. So where does it sort of sit in? Well, we have a set of activities that we use in our design studio, which we'll see in a moment, called the generative AI activities. And these are just a really easy way to drag, drop, and configure generative AI capabilities into your business workflows. And so some of the activities that you can see there is text generation, chat generation, language detection, format changes, summarizations, categorizations, etc. These are all going to be either available or becoming available over the next couple of months as we're rolling out these new features. Now, importantly, these Gen AI activities sit on top of what we call the AI trust layer, and that allows us to put some controls around who has access to Gen AI capabilities from a design experience. And also some rules around what can be done, and also being able to do some data monitoring and filtering about what's happening within your Gen AI designs, because obviously we don't want company data to be exposed externally to third parties. So, for example, maybe for some reason somebody's connected to the public version of OpenAI's ChatGPT. We don't want that. We need to use a private version, maybe sitting on Azure, that keeps all of our data private. And so the AI trust layer would be able to pick that up and be able to warn somebody that that data was being used in maybe not the best way. Again, we can have another session on the AI trust layer and what it's available and what's it about and how it works in a separate session. So as you can see, the trust layer sort of acts as a sort of intermediary between our data and our applications and third-party LLMs. Now, just to also mention that UiPath also has embedded our own LLMs internally. So we've used some open source LLMs and we've trained those very specifically to do certain jobs, and they are part and parcel of the platform. So again, they aren't going out to any third-party platform. They are within the UiPath cloud environment. Okay, so context grounding. So for those of you who probably know, you've probably heard of RAG, retrieval augmented generation. And this is where if we use something like an open chat GPT, for example, and we ask it a question, it goes away to the general knowledge that it was originally trained on, which is pretty much all of the internet, and comes back with an answer. And that answer may or may not be specific enough for your use. Now, if you're in a business, it could be that, if you're in a business, for example, you work in HR and you want to know when you can take leave or how many days leave you might have. You don't want a generic answer that's been determined from across the internet, which might be based on policies that it's found from, 30, 40 different countries, all with different legislation. You actually want to know your company's policy. What specifically for your company is their leave policy? And so what we want to be able to do is to use the power of the generative capabilities of the LLM, but we want to do that within the confines of a particular document or set of documents. And that's where context grounding sort of plays. We're able to constrain or contextualize the scope of the request to the LLM by the user to a particular set of documents. And so for the context grounding, we have an area within the UiPath platform called storage buckets, which is just basically a folder. This is accessed and managed through a module called Orchestrator. And in here, we can create various folders or storage buckets and just give them a name. Okay. And for example, you can see here we've got one called HR-KB, so Human Resources Knowledge Base. And if I then go into that folder, you can see that uploaded into the folder are some various policy documents. Okay, I've got about 8 documents in there. And so this then becomes our contextualization or our scope of the of where the LLM is going to get its answers from. So when I ask a question, it will generate an answer based on the knowledge it has been trained on within this set of documents. And behind the scenes, what's happening is there's a vector database, and these documents are then trained and vectorized and then maintained within that vector database. And of course, if I add a new document, I would need to retrain and recreate that vector database. Now, in terms of that, we call this access to this set of documents an index. And so what we'll see in the studio when we drive these together is that we have this thing called index and ingest. So what I'm saying here is use a particular set of activities. Okay, so it's basically calling the activities. It's saying use in Orchestrator a bucket called HRKB, and whatever set of documents is in there, train on those documents, and that training set, if you like, is now going to be referred to as HR_KB. Okay, and that's just what I've called it. There's no specific naming convention there. So hopefully that makes sense. We'll have a look in Studio in a second. Now, once I've actually created that index and ingested those documents, I'm then able to call my prompt. So here I have a user prompt. You are a whatever it is, an insurance expert, an HR expert, etc., etc. I'm then telling it to use a particular model. And in this example, I'm using GPT-4. Now, again, this activity is sitting on top of the AI trust layer. And so I'm limited to which models are available via the UiPath platform. Because, as I say, we don't want to go to something like OpenAI's version of ChatGPT. We want to go to a private Azure version, and this is hosted by UiPath as a private version of ChatGPT-4. And then we're saying, using that model, using that LLM, that's the prompt, and answer the question with the data that's been trained inside the index called, and in this example, insurance KB, okay, or HR KB, whatever it is. So hopefully that makes sense on how these two sort of work together. We ingest an index. Once we've created the index, we can then ask the LLM to perform a request, but we are contextualizing it to answers within that index document set. And then if we want to remove the index or renew the index, we're able to do that with another activity called delete index. And also if we want to find out what files are inside the index, there's also list storage bucket files so we can list. So there's a number of support activities. There's a few more that are available as well, but I thought these were just the key ones. So let's have a look at that in Studio. I'll just bring this across. Okay, so this is UiPath Studio. Again, drag drop configure for those of you who may not have seen it before. On the left-hand side, I have access to a number of activities, 200 or 300 plus activities. I drag them across to create a flow or steps that the automation will follow. So in this example, I'm going to ask an insurance question. Okay, I'm able to log what's happening. So there's an audit trail going on behind the scenes, which is good for checking on, if there's any errors or what's been happening with my LLMs. Here is that RAG call. So that's my set of connections to my activities. That's the prompt. And again, if I just bring that up, you can sort of see that I've just created a basic prompt there. Now, the nice thing about prompts is we can also use variables. So the question is actually the text passed by the user from a front-end UI, and we'll look at that in a minute. So here I've built up a complex prompt. Some of it is fixed, and some of it is dynamic by using the some variables. And then here the index name, etc. So there it is in action. It will run that through. It will bring back an answer. Again, I'm just putting some logging information to say, yes, that's happened. We've got this far in the process. And then I'm going to assign some results that I'm going to send back to the user interface here. Okay. Now, for those of you who are familiar and for those who aren't, I'm able to pass what we call arguments to and from this flow. So this is a flow that the automation will follow. And you can see I have some in parameters that is being sent by the UI. And I have some out parameters. In other words, the results are being sent back to the UI. And this is going to be what we call apps in a moment. So I hope you can see the basic building blocks of how we put these together. Okay, so let me just bring that out the way. And we'll just go on to apps. So what is apps? It's a drag drop modeling interface or studio to build browser-based applications. Again, I've got a list of activities or controls that I can drag across onto the page. You can see here that I've built up some buttons and text boxes and drop downs. And then I'm also able to link these pages to my automation that you saw in Studio. And I can do that by using processes. So let me just bring a copy of that up. And just give me 2 seconds. Here we go. So hopefully on the screen now, you should be able to see my copy of apps appearing. And what I will just do is, let me just check some questions here. I'll just pause. So hello. Can the tree training of it be? Yes, it can. So we can automate it. Again, we create a robot automation process to retrain, and I'll show you how I did that. It's a sort of semi-automated, but we can fully automate it. And can we create a separate context grounding for each domain? Exactly, and that's exactly what I've done in this example. So thank you for those 2 questions. And again, I hope that you're seeing these screen changes as well. So you should be able to see my apps design window in front of you at the moment. So what am I looking at? You can see here that I've got some different pages. So before we actually look at the multi-agents, let's just look at one of the agent management pages. So here, this is how I'm going to upload documents to the storage bucket. Okay, so up here, I've got an upload facility. And when I click on this button here, it's going to take the file that I selected, and it's going to pass it as a parameter up to Orchestrator to be added to a storage bucket. So how does that happen? Well, if I click on the upload button and look at the rules based on the button, you can see here that I actually have something called file uploader. And you can see that I've drag and dropped a number of components in order to pass the selected file up to a storage bucket. And I've got some error messages popping up as well. So this is a really quick, easy way of creating web or browser-based applications that connects very easily to UiPath automations. So where are the automations held? Well, you can see I've got a list of automations here. I didn't create one big automation project. I created a number of separate ones. There's no reason why you wouldn't want to create one big one. It just gets too complex. So let's have a look at the storage bucket get list, for example. This is a nice, easy process. So if I click on that, you can see that I have a process called storage bucket get list. And I'm passing from apps from here, the storage name, and it's going to return a value of the files in that list. Okay, so let's just have a look at that again. And that's actually sitting in here. So this is a list of my documents that I want to see. There's the refresh button. And if I click on the rule, there it is. There's where I'm calling that storage bucket get list process that was built in Studio. And here I'm saying, pass the name of the bucket I'm interested in. In this case, it's the HR bucket. I want to know the files by name. And then when it's completed, in other words, when the results are available, I want to update a text box called KB value. And if I go back to my page and click on this text area here, there it is, text KB. Okay, so this is kind of how it hangs together. Again, for some of you who've played with it, you'll know how easy it is to create these pages. So let's have a look at that in action. Now, what I have found is when I'm running the webinar, it takes up a lot of memory on my laptop. So this may be a little bit slow. So apologies if it's slow. It's not that slow when I'm not running Zoom or Teams or this presentation software. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go home. So this is the apps now in live mode. We were looking in design. Now it's the live mode. I'm going to go to that management page that you saw. So this is the live version. So this is the design version. And now what I'm doing is I'm running the live version. Now, the first thing it's going to do is actually go and do that refresh automatically. So you can see here, it's telling me all the files in my storage bucket. And if we go back to here, there they are. What I have done is I've just trimmed the unique IDs at the end off just to make it more readable. So I basically said, look for an underscore and trim the unique ID just to make it easier to read. So you can see these are the policies that I've uploaded. And I can also delete files from the knowledge base as well. Here, I didn't trim them. I've left those in, but you can see the effect. So I can scroll down and remove a particular one. And of course, if I've made any changes to this knowledge base, I need to retrain the agent. Excuse me. So each time I make changes, and the reason I've kept this separate is simply because I might want to add 3 files, delete 3 files, and then train once I've done all the file changes, rather than retrain after every single thing. So that question about, can I automate the retrain? Absolutely. That's just a design consideration on how you're doing it. For me, I've just got a human in the loop button that says I just want to say when I want to retrain, but you can fully automate this. Every time you upload a file or every time you delete a file, you could initiate an automatic retrain. Up to you. Absolutely. So hopefully you can see here that, oh, and I didn't show the upload. So this is just a file picker. If I go to, say, my samples, I go to, I know, HR, I choose one of my documents. I've already uploaded these, so I won't upload them again. But you get the idea. There it is. I can add some extra details here, an internal ID, maybe a description, and then I can upload and off it'll go. Now down here, I've also added a little bit of an audit trail. So you can see that I've been uploading and deleting various files, a little bit of description, who did it. So again, this is just design consideration in apps to help me see what's been uploaded, what's been deleted, when did I do a retrain, etc. So here you can see I've done a train the other day. When was that? On the 1st, for example, etc. So again, this isn't out of the box. You would have to add these to your design. But I am working with the apps team at UiPath, and maybe we will come up with a marketplace version of this very basic POC just to get you started. Cool. So if we then go home again, you can see that I've done that for each type of agent. So I've got a storage bucket for each area of the business that I'm interested in. So previously you saw HR. Now I've got the same thing for legal. Legal's only got 2 documents in it. If I go home again and we go to sales agent, for example, currently detected a prompt. Let me just try that again. Oh, that's right. Yes. So I haven't actually implemented sales agent. So that's good. Well done for the messaging that I put in. If I go to the insurance agent, again, you can see a different set of documents. In fact, I think there's only one in this one. And that's the insurance policy that we actually have with that agent. So what I've ended up doing is creating different agents that I can ask questions of. Okay, so I have an HR agent, a legal agent, and an insurance agent, and I can go into each one. So if I click on HR, you can see here that I've got a very basic chat interface. Again, the design is up to you. You might want to have something totally different. That's fine, but I can now ask questions. So can I take leave, which is probably a nice, easy one that it should be able to answer, and ask a question. And the way this is going, we're probably look at about 20, 30 seconds for an answer, which is a bit tiresome. But you can see the idea. It's now going to go to that context window. So if we go into here and we go to the Q&A areas, there's my setup, there's the ask. And if we click on the rule, you can see that what I'm doing is I'm simply saying go to the element that contains the question and pass that as an input, and also to my UiPath design, I'm passing something called action as ask HR. So if we go back to Studio, which is what it's calling, we can see quite quickly how that's all hanging together. Let me just close that down and that one, and we'll scroll to the top. You can see that I've got this thing called in action. So this is where I've got a number of functions within one process design. So in my argument, I'm saying the action is rebuild legal. So you're asking about how do I retrain? This is retraining. I'm basically saying if I've asked to retrain the legal knowledge base, then please run the index and ingest for the legal knowledge base. Okay, and this pretty much then does a reindex of, or a retrain of that knowledge base. And if I scroll down, you can see I've got the same for insurance, the same for HR, and the same for something called on-site. Now, if I keep on going down, let's just go and find the Ask HR, which is down here somewhere. Here we go. Here's the Ask HR. So you can see that I was, the action was Ask HR. So it's going to run this particular routine. We're just adding a little bit of logging. So I've got some audit of what was being asked and what it was doing. And then here is our actual call. Okay, if you remember, we looked at this earlier. You are an HR expert. Go and ask a question, blah, 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 blah. There's the actual question that I'm asking as a user. That's been appended. That will then go to GPT-4, which is the UiPath's implementation and host and hosting of that. And return, if I just click on here, the generated text is going to be called the HR answer. And so I'm going to put that as a return back to apps. And so if we go back to the actual app itself, there we can see that it's actually responded. Yes, you can take leave, and it's a nicely formatted response. It's telling me all about it. And the important thing is this is limited to my company policy documents. It's not relating to anything out on the internet or anything weird like that. It's not picking up somebody else's leave policy. It is restrained or contextualized just to HR. So again, sorry, I'll pause there for a minute. We'll just check for any questions. In order to set up the context grounding folders, upload, do we need to create the apps from scratch? Okay, yes, sorry. So you don't have to use apps in any of this. I'm just using apps because it's really easy to do proof of concepts. But of course, you can do production strength in apps as well. But at the moment, yes, you do actually have to create something from scratch. But again, as I say, hopefully in Marketplace, I'll probably publish this once it's a little bit more robust as a Marketplace starter pack. So thanks for that, James. All the management controls include all of these. Yeah, so again, similar. It is built from scratch, but we will get some fast track things for you. Okay, Yepe, are the indexes created on the fly or ad hoc basis? Are they persisted on visual? Yeah, so excuse me. So those indexes are hosted inside a vector database by UiPath. So consider them part and parcel of Orchestrator. Right now, today, I cannot click on something called indexes and view the indexes in Orchestrator. That's to come. That's probably going to be available October time or forward. But right now, today, what I do have is a set of activities that you saw earlier. So again, if I just scroll up here, so to create the index and ingest to create the index, I have this activity. Behind the scenes, that's going to a vector database hosted by UiPath inside the UiPath cloud. So effectively, it will be managed by UiPath Orchestrator. So hopefully that sort of makes sense. So a lot of these will be coming, there'll be more management tools available as we go along. Continues. Okay, yes, so thanks for that, Ron. At the moment, you would actually have to manage the persistence of the conversation. So right now, what's happening here is if I ask another question, it will not know or will not relate it to this one. So the way I would have to do that is to actually save this in a variable and then pass it as part of the next prompt so that the conversation can start using previous conversations. The actual prompting is something that's going to be becoming more and more powerful over time. And there will be more sort of best practice advice coming from the team as we go through. But right now, my understanding is, unless I've missed the memo, we are not persisting a chain of conversations automatically. I would have to programmatically design that in. And as I say, a quick way of doing that is simply to capture this and pass it in with the next prompt so that it's remembering what it's already been discussing. Yeah. Now, having said that, though, I've done something a little bit similar to that, because manually what I've done is I've said, oh, actually, I really like that. I might want to use this later. So I'm going to add that to my notes. And so I got here, save notes. So in a way, this is almost sort of one step towards what we were talking about. I can use this as a history of what the LLM has been talking about and use it in a more sort of chained chat environment. Okay, now you notice here that I've got paste to agent questions. So again, just following on from that, what I could say is I have a new employee, how to onboard them. And at that point I can stop and I can say paste this piece of information. So what I might do is this might confuse it, but I'll just do this. So what I can do is, you know, manually do what I said we could do automatically for those bigger conversations. So hopefully that kind of gives you an idea, but yes, it is more, you have to design it. It's not out of the box. So while that's just getting that answer back, let me just have a look down here. Is basically deploying an app. Is that right? Can we publish this as public? Yes to those. Again, apps is only one way. It's just the UI. You decide what the UI is relevant for your scenario. You don't have to use apps. It's just easy to do and to make. And can they be public facing? Yes, they can. We do have the concept of a public facing app. Again, you need to think about security and all of those good things. But again, there's no reason why you can't make a public-facing app. Typically, what we would do is have some sort of security wall or portal before you get to the UiPath app. So there might already be in place a user portal that the user or the member of the public has entered, which is adding the security layer, and then you're exposing the UiPath public app to them after that. That's one way that customers tend to do it. Does it support user-based fine-tuning? The fine-tuning right now is not being done at a LLM level. So what you're seeing here is context grounding is basically your fine-tuning. So if I decided, hang on a minute, inside, sorry, this was the response from that previous one. If I go back to here, let's say I was not happy with the redundancy policy. It was giving me a too vague answer. What I would have to do to fine tune the context grounding is to actually rewrite the redundancy policy in such a way that it was giving correct answers. Yeah, so I'm actually fine-tuning the source documents. I'm not fine-tuning context grounding, and I'm not fine-tuning the LLM. That may not be ideal for your situation, but it certainly is one way to create a sense of fine-tuning. So I hope that sort of answers that question. I think the answer will be yes, but I don't know what it is. I'm not privy to that level of the way that the product's used. So I can find a little bit more about how we're creating that vector database and what's being used, but I can't answer that right now, Samir. Apologies. A very good question, James. How does the AI unit consumption, how's it calculated? To be honest with you, it has not been formalized yet on how we're going to be charging for context grounding or the Gen AI activities in response to context grounding. So that will come. I would say put an arbitrary 1 unit per call just to have something. But that could all change. Everybody's waiting for the team to come up with their pricing around the context grounding. Okay, we have to redefine the way we yeah, look, again, AJ, that's for fine-tuning at this stage. So I'm not saying that your policy document or whatever documents you're using won't work straight away, but if you wanted to fine-tune, what I found at the moment, the best way is to edit those documents that you're using as your source. What's the limit of each prompt and system message? Again, thanks for that one, Ron. I think for the system prompt, I might need to get back to you on that one. I have a feeling 5,000 characters was the maximum size of a prompt. But please let me get back to you on that. In fact, let me just make sure I've got a copy of all of these questions. Sorry, let me just make sure I'm putting these in Notepad in case I lose them for later. Just give me 2 seconds, and I'll keep updating this list as well. File, new tab, V. Okay, what's happened here? Something's gone wrong. Ha! Let me just try that again. Sorry, people. I'll just. Oh, it's trimming that off. That's a pain. Okay. Okay, so are the indexes created? Are the indexes? Excellent. And then I just need to get hold of these here. Control-C. Sorry, I just want to make double sure I don't lose the questions. There we go. Cool. So I've got those. Sorry, now let's go back. So what's the limit of each prompt? Will the response include citations? Yes, Ron, as well. So again, the citations are being included. So if you notice here, we've got citation 2, citation 2, citation 1. I haven't brought these across. So again, I would just need to double check on how to do that, but absolutely the citations are there and they can be brought across. So let me just make sure that that's there. So that's good. So thanks for prompting that. I didn't include them in the responses. What's the image font? Yeah, so agentic automation, AJ, thanks for that question. Agentic, we're still a little way away from agentic automation. So at the moment, what we're seeing here is a multi-agent approach where the agent is able to not only respond with a question based on some company documents, but is also then able to action that as well. So for example, if I said write an email, it will also email the thing it's just written. That's an agent. Okay, you have to have the functionality as well as the answer for it to be an AI agent. So it's not just the questions, and I'll show you this in a minute. It's the ability to action as well as provide an answer or generate an answer. So at the moment, we are definitely multi-agent or AI agent. Agentic automation is a little bit different. That's where we will say something like, please update the customer with our latest offers. Okay, I'm making this up on the fly. So what an agentic approach might do is to take that and almost create the process that is needed to perform that request on the fly as it's going through. So agentic is a lot more complex than just multi-agent. Agentic will go, I need to get hold of the customer details. I've got the customer ID, for example, but I now need to go to the Salesforce database. I need to grab the customer's email address. I need to understand what their current products are. I then now need to go to the offers database and understand which offers apply to this customer profile. I then now need to generate an email. I need to then include those offers. I then need to send those offers out, and then I need to update Salesforce to say that we've sent those offers to the client. And all of that would be dynamically generated as it was working through. That's an agentic approach. We're not quite there yet. That's where the design teams are working behind the scenes with UiPath. And it's also what Daniel and Graham are also talking about in their public webcasts and public discussions. So agentic is on the roadmap, but we're not there just yet. As it gets to leave policies, is it possible to access my leave and tell? Absolutely. So again, thank you for that one, Ikshit. What that basically is a combination of multiple prompts and function calls, and we'll look at function calls as the next thing. Does the response result from the agent is having paid? Does the response result from the agent? Yeah, that's an interesting one, James. So again, depending on the prompt and whether you have included PII scraping or not, could affect the response. So for example, if we decided that the prompt should say, go and fetch, James Smith account, and of course the PII has scraped out James Smith, the poor old agent is going to be left there going, well, I don't know what to scrape because the PII is coming into place. So we would have to maybe look around and know how to programmatically get around that kind of thing. And maybe PII scraping is only needed in certain situations and not in others. So again, that would be a design consideration. It's a supplementary question to that. Can in addition be from other storage sources like DB, blah. So right now today, context grounding is limited to the storage bucket area. Absolutely, the roadmap is other storage areas and not just PDFs, but CSVs, Excel, etc., etc. And so it is early days. Once the public preview is over and we go GA, then you'll see a whole flurry of additional functionality to context grounding. So thanks for that, Samir. And absolutely yes. Today, absolutely not. But as the product rolls out, you'll definitely see that. Okay, so we really need to look at function calling. So let's have a look at that. So we've seen that. I'm going to go back to home. Okay. So let me think the best way of doing this. So, okay, let's go back to our HR. And we've seen, excuse me, this one here. So let's have a look at, something like that. Let me try this on the fly. So create an email to john@uipath.com on the topic of leave and explain what our leave policy is. Okay, so we're going to ask that as a general question, and again, it's going to take a few seconds. Sorry, it's so slow in the demonstration. It's not a good look, is it? And then what we'll do is then use it to do it in a slightly different way. Okay, so you can see here that it's done what we've asked. It's gone, dear John, and it's created an email body, which is just talking about the, and this is what we'd expect. Okay, so not nice and easy. Now for the demonstration, what I've done is I'm going to do it slightly different. I'm going to create the prompt in a slightly different way, and I'm hoping that this is the right version, because what I've done is I've then said to the context grounding, I want you to learn how to formulate functions, because I want to be able to call a particular function as and when they're available. So let's just see what this comes back with, and then I'll show you how I'm implementing functions. Now, the actual execution of the function is something that you will need to think about, but have a look at the reply this time. Again, it's written the email. Okay, it's basically said, I hope this email finds you well. The company name is Big HR, or Big, the company's called Big, and fantastic. But look what it's also done at the end. It's actually created a JSON format which is correct for my function call. Okay, so how was it able to then do that? Okay, if I now go to my samples directory and open up another document that I created and put inside the context. So if I go to storage bucket, you'll see that you've got a PDF in here called function calls. Okay, and I've added this to each of my storage buckets. So each of those storage buckets has got a document called function call. And if we look at the PDF, what I've done is I've defined some functions that UiPath can actually run. Okay, one's called create email or write email. Another's called get Salesforce account. And I've got one here called create task for a UiPath task. And I've basically just sent it the JSON format that I need in order to be able to run that through a UiPath automation. So I hope that makes sense. It's just a list of available function calls that I know that I want to use with my solution. If we go back to, the agent, you'll also notice that this button has suddenly magically appeared called send email. It wasn't there before, but now it says send email. So in this example, and I'm not saying this is the right way, the best way, the only way, but what I've done is I've said to apps, when you get a response from the LLM or from the chat, just have a quick look, and does it include a function call? If it does, activate this button with the function. Okay, so obviously I would probably not show this if this was production, right? This is just for you to see that the LLM has actually gone, I know how to call this email, and here's the function for it, and I've activated this. Now I've still got human in the loop, right? Because I'm a control freak and I don't want my AI to be sending off emails without my approval, right? So it's done and yes, I'm happy with that, send email. Now what this is going to do is it's going to go away and, oh, there it goes, it's activating now. So what it's actually done is it's kicked off my send email. It's basically gone, here's the text from the app, there it is, the Dear John, and then here is the JSON at the bottom. So you're just seeing a copy of this. This is what's being sent to my RPA, my studio, my process flows. Okay, it's then going to tidy that up, and another one will appear in a second. So it's basically taking that and going, I'm going to just check this with available functions to make sure that it really exists. And there it is. So now it's saying, here is the JSON created in Studio. So in other words, Studio has taken that and gone, okay, you've told me there's a function. I've cross-referenced it, and indeed there is. And this is what I'm now going to do. And it's actually then gone and said, this is now using the response from the LLM. This is what you've asked me to do. It's just created it in a different structured way, but still using the function call template that we saw earlier. I've just changed some of the variable names, etc. Now, once it's done that, it's going to then launch that and send this to my email. And then off it goes. It's actually going to invoke the send email functionality within UiPath. And the email has been sent. And if I go to my emails and you go to my drafts and bring this over and just check the date. So we're still on the 9th at the moment. So I'm expecting a new email to appear here any second. And so basically what's happened now is a standard UiPath RPA automation has run and is hopefully sending that off as a thing. Let me just double check. Come on. I heard it make a bit of a noise in the background, so it should have done it. Might have to come back in a second. Again, sorry, everything's running very slow this morning. Just come back here. Come on. We'll come back to the emails in a second. We'll just let that do its thing. So you can see that this has actually now sent an email. So do I have to have a button and a human in the middle to say send that email? No, I don't. That could have been all automated. But this is just one way of being able to add function calls into the prompts. So let me just try one more again. And again, I tried this earlier. So we'll get rid of the this text here, and we'll just put this here. So using the create task. So again, I'm using this as a demonstration to show you different ways of invoking. So I'm kind of forcing it, right, to use that function. Obviously in production, you wouldn't need to force it. It would just be part of the prompt. So we'll let that do its thing. So notice the button down here is gone. It's not that create email button anymore. And what this should do now, there we go. It's changed the action button from create email to create task now, because it said, oh, you want to create a task? Absolutely. This is what we need to do. This is the task function format. And it's saying the function is going to be called create task. The team name is going to be the HR team, because it knows that's my team's name. And then here it's actually created a nice description of what I want it to do. And just down here, it's actually just telling me why it's come up with what it did. And I can try doing a create task as well. And that's simply going to go away and create a UiPath task for me to then to then look at. So hopefully you can see how we can actually use functions to interact at the agent level. Now, just as I realize we're running a little bit out of time, so I will take questions in a second. I'll just want to point out one of the other ones here, and this was the multi-agent. Okay, so in this one, what we want to say is, can we use all of these agents chained together? And absolutely we can. So what I want to say is something like this. My employee has broken their laptop. Am I insured for this loss? And how should I proceed? How should I proceed? Let me just check the thing. And question mark, and do agent level review. So what this is going to do now is it's not going to send this just to one agent. It's actually going to send it to 3 or 4 agents at the same time. It's going to send it to the HR department. It's going to send it to the legal team, and it's going to send it to the insurance agent. And all 3 are going to bring back a response. So now, while that's doing that, let's just, oh, there it is. There's the email to the question about the working visa. Okay, so there it is to John. It's the working visa policy. So it's created that nice title. There's the body. And also, because it knows I was the logged in user to apps, it's also brought back my signature as well. So hopefully you can see how that was an example of using the LLM to create a response and include a function. Okay, now if we go back to the multi-agent response, you can see what's happened here. We've actually got a consolidated view now. We've got the HR team telling me that if the employee was working from home, then that's okay. They should have been able to do that, and that we should be able to be covered by the insurance provider. From a legal point of view, it's telling me that, yes, Fair Work regulations for Australia said that that's okay, and that an employer can recover costs incurred directly to the result of private use of the property. So it's basically saying, in theory, then yes. an employee is entitled to use their laptop away from home, and you shouldn't be able to stop them. And then from an insurance review, it's saying that the proposal is valid. However, without concrete knowledge of small business. Okay, so what it's saying is there's not enough information in the policy document itself. It looks like we are covered, but I'm going to have to go and speak to a specific agent to really go into the nuts and bolts, and I'd have to give them, a sort of, a log of what happened. But I think this is really good. It's basically saying, yes, HR have said employees can use their laptops out of work. The Fair Work Australia legal legislation says, yes, the employee was doing what they're allowed to do. There's, you shouldn't be able to stop them. And really, it's the insurance company and the specific policy entitlements. And it's saying at a high level, the policy is covered, but you need to go further with the insurance company for the actual nitty-gritty. So I think that's a pretty good view of what we're expecting from a multi-agent view. And then the very final example I wanted to show you was next best action. So again, another app layout. Down here, you can see I've gone to my jobs queue, and I've got some jobs waiting. It's telling me that this customer, Dave Davis, and it's brought back a 360 view. So UiPath automations have gone away to different backend systems and brought back this 360 view of the customer. I'm now going to consolidate this view, this summary, in my prompt, and I'm going to then send that summary, all of this information that you can see on the page, I'm sending it to a prompt to say, hey, context grounding, what should I do next? And what it's telling me is that the customer is based in Australia. They're not a priority because they're not an international customer. And the customer has a history of regularly paying late and having overdue payments. And so the actual advice is close this account. We don't need this customer. It's costing more to chase the payments than the payments are worth collecting, right? How did I do that? Again, if we go to the storage bucket and we go to our on-site area, we can, oh, that's not the right one. Sorry, go to sales. You can see that we've got a sales recommended next best action playbook. And so what does that look like? I don't have it at hand, but basically these are the rules of engagement in a PDF. So these are the kind of scenarios that are either good or bad that would then show up in our next best action. And so this way I can start providing that information. So sorry, it's a little bit rushed at the end. Let me just jump back to the video. We can mix these generative AI actions with a whole host of other activities. And they might be things like, I think I might have got Salesforce in there somewhere. Typically I don't. Have I got SAP? Yeah, so for example, if I had an SAP system, I can log into SAP and then navigate to an account and bring back the account information from SAP. I don't know if I've got Dynamics installed. Yeah, Dynamics. So I could go to get record from Dynamics and get the information. So again, you can, like I said about creating that dynamic prompt, I can go to different systems and embellish the prompt with known data, customer data, product data, log files. You know, you might be in cybersecurity and you want to check a log file. Let's get the latest log file, format it and send it to the prompt for analysis, etc. It doesn't have to be, you know, sort of commercial type things. Is that via Gen AI 2? No. So again, and this is a really good one to finish on, Ron, actually, is that, remember, Gen AI is a bit like a laser, okay? And I would suggest you're only using Gen AI activities where it makes sense, okay? A number of reasons. One, they're complex. And two, they are costly, as we talked about these AI unit usages. Yeah. So you don't want to be using Gen AI for everything. It's about identifying the right tools at the right time in the process to support the outcome that you're looking for. So a lot of people will say, yes, Gen AI can do everything. my personal view is let's use the right tools at the right time and really get the most out of it, and use GenAI as a laser to really focus on specific scenarios. Cool. Well, thanks for that, Jeppe. I appreciate that. So thank you very much. That's great feedback. Please, if you could suggest a topic for our next Transformation Tuesday, it could be more of what we've just done. It could be on a completely different topic. Please do email me. I'll send you my email here if you don't have it already. Also contact me via LinkedIn as well. More than happy to field any questions that you might have offline as well. And of course, if you wanted us to give a more in-depth presentation to your organizational team, again, let me know, and either myself or my colleagues, depending where we're located, happy to do that as well. So thanks everyone for your attention. Sorry we've gone over time a little bit, and look forward to your feedback, and see you hopefully next time on the next Transformation Tuesday.